So, as those of you who know me know well, I have a lot of words in my heart, but we all have a limited amount of time. So I'm going to use my cheat sheet to stay on point and keep it fast. All right, so my thesis, it is simple, and everything I'm about to say follows from it. The people of this institute know what they are doing, and the director's job is to make it easier for them to do it. Okay, who we are? We are the Institute of Astrophysics. We ask the most fundamental questions about how everything came to be, how the universe formed, how stars and galaxies assembled, planets, life, whether we are alone, what happens when stars die, go boom, come back as cosmic zombies, cannibalize each other, get eaten by gigantic black holes. We ask about the nature of space and time and how the most violent events in the universe create ripples in space-time. We run what I like to call a full and square operation. We seed each other's ideas, support each other's projects, complement each other's strengths, and delight in each other's successes. We are not a big place, but we do have critical mass, and we are not afraid to use it. This culture was built over decades, and any vision for the future starts with acknowledging that and protecting it. Decades, I say, but formally we're only 8 years old. A young institute with a long history, built over 40 years of work, going back to when Nicky Lafis first envisioned the Crete Astrophysics Group and then this institute, and further back still to 1984, when Yannis Papamastorakis dreamed up Skinnacas Observatory and founded it with Forth, the University of Crete, and the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics. None of it would have happened without the founding president of Forth, Lefteris Economou, who believed in astrophysics here when it was just an idea, and who was always our champion. And the foundation of the institute would not have made it to law without the advocacy of two more former Forth presidents, Tavernarakis, who enthusiastically supported the project, and Fotakis, who carried the project past the finish line from the ministry during very tough times for the country. And that one-line addition of Institute of Astrophysics to the law describing Forth would not have become actual research enterprise without a fourth president, the current one, Vasilis Karmandaris, who, as our founding director, took over an institute name and handed over 6 years later the top-ranked research institute in the country. We stand on their shoulders. So the current view from this vantage point in numbers is this: 148 refereed papers in 2025, that's 4.6 per PhD researcher per year, competitive with institutes 3 and 4 times our size. We're about 30 adults, and that includes PhD scientists and support personnel, and another 40 students. So that's our size. We also have about 10 research fellows who spend fractions of their time with us. 14 million in new funding since 2018, 3.7 million this past year alone, 6 ERC grants out of 7 awarded in universe sciences in Greece. Ever, 6 have come to our people. 5 PhD defenses last year, 28 doctoral students now in training, 26 visiting scientists last year, 12 visiting students, collaborators from Caltech to Saclay to Cambridge to the Max Planck Institutes. And also a word about our home. We sit in the physics building of the University of Crete, and that's not an accident. Our partnership with the university has been harmonious and mutually enriching for decades. Our affiliated faculty are UOC professors. Our students are UOC students. Our observatory is jointly operated, one of those relationships where the sum is genuinely greater than the sum of the parts. I've been acting director for a year now, a little bit over a year. So let me share what we've been up to. Up at Skinnacas and down at campus, our infrastructure is transforming. Up on the mountain with pictures. General infrastructure, the road has been repaved, microwave link upgraded for better bandwidth, new weather station that survived the full winter, grid connection deliberately postponed to go underground since the above ground poles on neighboring peaks keep getting destroyed by snow and lightning, so better to do it right. New telescopes. The 200 plus has been named and commissioned. The third dome is up. Custom-made lightning protection is installed to host a new 1.2-meter telescope arriving this year. Look at the spikes. Where are the spikes? Here are the spikes. I don't know if you can see the spikes, but there are spikes. Skinnaka sits right above the childhood home of Zeus, and he still likes to visit. All telescopes. The 1.3 meter is entering full automation and full ownership by our people. The dome has been serviced. Our technicians built a new control system. So when something breaks, we fix it ourselves. New uninterruptible power supply so that the telescope switches seamlessly between batteries, generator, and soon the grid. Together with colleagues at IESL, we developed and tested optics that let the telescope lock onto a moving spacecraft and hold the laser beam steady. The key technology for space-to-ground laser telecommunications. So the 1.3 meter is now qualified as an ESA ground station. And that ESA project is complete. The fiber optic cable connecting the observatory to Forth has been tested from the peak to Knossos, and the equipment for quantum secured communications is installed. And I'm told on-mountain fiber connecting all buildings is on track for this year. The 200 plus telescope is being equipped for 2 new roles, tracking satellites for European space traffic management and serving as a ground station for laser communications, both to start this summer. Science, 184 operating nights last year, 21 refereed papers with Skinnaka's data, up from 13 last year. 1,500 visitors at open nights. Finally, we are building towards 12-month operations. Winter nights are long, which is good since we are astronomers, and parts of the sky are only visible in the winter. Also, if Skinnaka is going to host international experiments and services, it needs to be available year-round. Okay, new science directions. We've started a new effort, bridging theoretical and experimental gravitational physics. We recruited Achilles Porphyriadis as an affiliated faculty, the physics department relativist, and we're building regular interactions with the theoretical physicists and mathematicians at the Institute of Applied Math and Computational Math and the University of Crete. Integration of gravity. Exactly 1 week from today, Genzel, 2020 Nobel Prize in Physics for discovering the black hole at the center of the galaxy, will be here giving the more towards the general fourth public talk. You're all cordially invited, even those of you who are not IA, and of course the physics colloquium on Thursday. So we have gravity next week. Separately, we recruited twice ERC holder Takis Kondos as research fellow from the École Normale Supérieure in Paris to set up a lab for quantum sensors for radio astronomy. Great synergy with Argos, our radio interferometer currently under commissioning on campus. And speaking of Argos, we expect first light in 2026, this year, which is going to be a year of first light. Argos in the radio, Wallop for the Pacify optopolarimetric survey of stars, Turbo for transient sources, polarimetry on the 200 plus for time domain science. On the admin side, we've built operational plans for both Skinnaka's and the Institute. So for the first time, we have a clear map of expenses and what income we need to be long-term viable. We're following the Papamastorakis doctrine, which says hope for the best, shoot for the stars, prepare for the absolute worst. So if funding goes well, we'll do lots of things. Build a re-illuminization facility to cut costs and serve other observatories, refurbish the 30-centimeter dome, and install in it the 60-centimeter fully automated, dedicated to income-generated services. We double the solar and battery capacity. We stock up on every single point failures per part. And on the other end of the parameter space, if funding hits rock bottom for 3 years, we know the minimum to keep 3 telescopes running. If things go truly sideways, we know the minimum to keep 2 running for another 3 years. So we're building a reserve fund that can carry us through this scenario. We're nowhere near that end of the parameter space, do not get alarmed, but we've gotten a lot of mileage over the past 30 years by being the observatory equivalent of preppers. Other worst case scenarios. What happens if the director, the chief administrator, and the chief technician all die in the same plane crash? You need a manual to keep the place running. So we're building one, the Institute of Astrophysics Big Book of Processes, affectionately called BBOP. Institutional memory for every administrative procedure, which is minimal, complete, and actually pleasant to look at. Even when everybody stays alive, it should cut the burden on admin and researchers alike. Same philosophy with software. To lighten administrative load, business travel request tool that auto quotes per diem and accommodation caps has already been deployed. Electronic travel receipt upload planned for next. Also automated desk reservations and more are coming. We are transitioning all PhD students to full benefits employment contracts. That's going to be complete by the second half of 2026. And all future grants will budget for full contracts only. Institute policy, the end. On students, we train a lot of young people. Some will go on to lead this field. Some are smarter than that. They will take their skills and go where the convertible and the swimming pool are. And some will go where the yacht and the private jet are. Both are successes, and we celebrate both. But I do worry whether we do enough for the second kind. Do we teach them how to market their skills, how an industry CV differs from an academic one? Do we give them formal certificates for the vast array of things they learn here so that they can put on that industry CV? From my experience with students who recently made that transition, no, we don't. And I had a humbling experience last year. We do open nights, as you know, on the mountain every year, and we always ask people to help. And we never properly train them. So last year, we brought in an experienced amateur observer to run a 2-day course with a certificate issued at the end. And the participation amazed me. People want the training, and also people want the formal recognition for it. So this fall, we're also running a formal workshop on transitioning from academia to industry, led by a systems design professional with real industry experience, and issuing a proper certificate for it. And I'm working with the university and the physics department to find out ways so that we can recognize formally other very marketable skills that we give our people, including machine learning, data analysis, instrumentation, and so forth. Computing. The Metropolis cluster has served us well, but the 25 teraflops it can pull is roughly 2 PlayStation 5s. So we're procuring Pleiades, a 24 NVIDIA H200 GPU cluster, which can pull up to 40 petaflops, over 1,000 times more powerful than Metropolis, 1.2 million from my ERC, shared infrastructure for the whole institute. For the few non-astronomers, Pleiades is a star cluster, and it's Pleiades, the cluster, is a computer cluster, so cluster. And also Pleiades were mythologically the daughters of Atlas, and we're procuring this through Milky Way Atlas. So, so that, I apply myself to naming things properly. Okay, good. I want to tell 2 stories now, which say more about this institute than any statistic. Okay, story 1. Some years ago, Andreas Zezas preparing for his ERC interview. At this point, you have to understand, no ERC in the universe sciences had come to Greece ever. Okay, so we do what you do, this scenario, you play panel, right? He gives his interview, and then you ask the worst possible questions you can come up with. And, for those of us who have done it, these are actually worse than the panel actual. The rehearsal is always worse. So, but we give it our all, right? We want to help. And by the end of it, everybody's feeling bad, and we're all in need of a pep talk. But there's only one pep talk that matters, which is the one which is true. And that's good science. You'll get it. Okay, scene, corridor of the astronomers in the physics building. I just walk out of my office, and Andreas walks out of his office. Randomly, we bump into each other. He said, Vaso, I got it. So at this point, we scream, we hug, everybody hears the commotion, everybody comes out of their offices, impromptu celebration. Okay? Second story. A few years later, my ERC doesn't get funded. It was the highest ranked ERC that was cut. that year. So Sifis Papadakis shows up in my office and he says something that I will never forget. He says, we don't go to Brussels for permission, we go to Brussels for funding. This is good science, you don't slow down. And of course I protest, Sifi, how am I going to do that? I need a ton of observing time. I need observers who's going to observe for me. It's impossible to do without the funding. And Sifi says, I will observe for you. You will observe. Every single one of us will go and observe for you because it's good science. Okay? This is what this place is. It is a place where a colleague shows up when you have failed and says, continue, this is good science. It is the place where a colleague helps you with your preparation and says, you'll get it, this is good science. It is the place where you get it and everybody celebrates your success. I don't know how to put this in a strategic vision, but this is the most valuable thing we have. And the director's job is protecting that before anything else. Okay. But other than that, okay, what is the director's job? I think it has 5 important parts. First, cheer on the science. What quantifies success? What are our KPIs? Is it the number of our ERCs? Is it the number of papers? Is it the total funding? These do correlate with true success. Okay? And it's great that we have done well in all of those. But they correlate with success imperfectly. And it's going to become worse. I always remember, and I wish you also always remember, that bringing home the funds is not the deliverable. Absorbing the funds is not the deliverable. Doing the science is the deliverable. And as an editor at the largest dedicated astronomy journal right now in the world, we didn't try to become that. It was circumstances. I can tell you this. The number of papers is exploding thanks to generative AI. Some of these papers have very little content. We are not publishing them, but others are. So very soon, the number of papers will amount to exactly nothing as a metric. So what's left? Pushing the boundary of knowledge forward is what's left. Conquering new knowledge on behalf of humanity. That has always been the definition of success, and all the metrics are proxies. And some of the most commonly used proxies are about to go kaput. So my promise is I will always encourage bigger ideas over more papers. Ask the questions that need answering, not the ones that can be answered fast or that can get funding safely. Make a plan to answer them, and I will be here cheering, recognizing this as success and breaking my head to help you secure funding for your big ideas. Second, speaking on resources, secure resources persistently, diversely, and creatively. We ran 28 grants with 0 permanent admin. That number is not right. We had 4 technical staff to operate 1 telescope. We have 4 technical staff to operate 3 telescopes. That number is not right either. And our ability to support this staff hinges right now, because we cannot make permanent hires, on research grant overheads, which is even worse than our ability to keep doing science next year, because overhead funding means you divide by 0.15, means you multiply by 7, right? For every 1,000 in overhead, somebody needs to bring 7,000 in research funding, okay? And we rely on that to keep our admin and our technical personnel going, okay? So not only our big ideas, but our very institute could die because enough panels woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or because US funding collapsed and every American astrophysicist is competing for European money. So it is my job to worry about keep the momentum going funding so that you only worry about the science. We will not let the institute die, and we will not let grant projects die. We will run a tight ship on everything else if it means enabling the science. We will get creative and we will diversify beyond competitive grants, since this means enabling the science. Third, shield from the mundane. Every hour a researcher spends chasing signatures, filling forms, or navigating bureaucracy is an hour not spent on the universe. So I will make as much of that as possible go away. Not move it around, not pile it on admin until they break. I'll try to eliminate it. And what's left, I will personally absorb as much as humanly possible. You push the envelope, and whenever you push the envelope, per Newton's third law, the envelope pushes back. So, pushing the envelope like that, breakthrough progress, cannot happen in 30 minutes on Monday and another 20 minutes on a Thursday. It needs deep work windows uninterrupted by noise, so I will protect those windows and reduce the noise. Fourth, see through the infrastructure. The transformation of our instrumentation on Skinakas and on Fourth Campus and on the university campus is of unprecedented scale for us. Okay? Our technical and admin people at IA, at the university, and at Fourth are giving it their all. My commitment is push alongside them to see the job through and make sure they feel our appreciation every day. Fifth, protect the culture. What culture is when we all speak to all, where a PhD student can walk into a professor's office and be taken seriously with their wild idea, where we cheer each other's successes and we recognize each other's big ideas, even when the funding has failed, especially when the funding has failed. For two teams sit together to write a Synergy 4 grant, and they say, hey, this is really cool science. Let's pursue it regardless of grant outcome. That culture was built one conversation at a time over 40 years. And my job is to make sure it keeps growing. Almost done. There is a sixth. Defend the science. Saved it for last because it is the reason everything else exists. The funding landscape is shifting. Okay? Priorities move towards defense and applications. And AI is changing the terrain. So there's always pressure to justify fundamental research in terms of something else. Something more applied, something more immediately useful, something more economically relevant, more strategically aligned. So I will quote Robert Wilson, who built Fermilab. A senator asked him, what will your lab do for the defense of our country? And Wilson said, it has nothing to do directly with defending our country, except to make it worth defending. I would say the same about us. We study the contents and structure of the universe, the physics of black holes, the lives and deaths of stars, the signature of gravitational waves, the evolution of galaxies across cosmic time. We do it because the questions are irresistible and because the pursuit of them is one of the finest things humans can do. One last thing, really last this time. There is much discussion in international circles about indigenous ways of knowing. And I would like to assure you that we move with the times and we are definitely embracing our own indigenous way of knowing. We are here on this island at the southern edge of Greece, and the way of knowing indigenous to us is orthos logos, rationalism. Western science is indigenous here. The people who asked the first questions about the nature of the universe asked them in Greek, by coastlines that are not that different from ours. And this is our tradition to carry forward. So even if this institute becomes the last place in the world where people can still do curiosity-driven science with regard for nothing else other than finding out the truth, then I consider it my job to make sure it stays this way. No matter how creative we have to get with funding, no matter how many bureaucracy automations I have to vibe code to reduce admin cost, no matter how many private astro parties I have to co-host with our outreach officers for their positions to be net profitable. Okay? CFIs was right. We don't go to them for permission. We go to them for funding. Our mission, our deliverable, is the science. And the science doesn't wait. So I started with a simple thesis. The people of this institute, you, since we're in a tight family circle, you know what you're doing. My job is easier for you to do that. Make it easier for you to do that. So I will carry what needs carrying, so you can think about what needs thinking. As for where to go next, the future, yeah, as Vasilis always likes to quote, it is very hard to make predictions, especially about the future. Only thing I can do is share our intent, which is our institute motto. The sky is not the limit. Thank you.